All right.
No, there isn't.
It's Monday, October 11th, 2021, and I'll call the Prescott regular city council meeting to order. Take roll call. Bailey?
Here.
Maureen?
Here.
Pat?
Here.
Dar?
Here.
Rob?
Here.
And Tom.
Here.
Let's all stand and say a pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Anybody in the audience that'd like to speak to the council about anything on the agenda? We do have a public hearing that you'll also be able to speak at the public hearing. But anything that's on the agenda, now would be the time to step forward, state your name, and give us any public comment. Seeing no one running to the podium, we'll go to the consent agenda, which includes the regular city council meeting minutes of September 27th, finance of October 6th, cash balances, budget year to date, accounts payable, payroll, and receivables.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Motion made, second, to approve the consent agenda and the 5 items I had read off. Is there any other discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is ordinance, and the first item under that would be open a public hearing to change highway commercial C2 zoning.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second it.
Motion made, second to open public hearing. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, the mic is open for anyone in the audience that'd like to speak to the council concerning the proposed change to highway commercial C2. Step forward right here, state your name, affiliation, address, whatever, and then give us your comments, not necessarily a discussion.
Mike?
Okay,
Pardon?
do you want us to go first or do you want them to go?
Yeah.
I suppose you could present if you'd like. Sorry about it. Have a seat right there in the front row. We'll let you. You don't have to walk us far. My fault.
Just so I can give everybody an overview of the discussion. So thank you, Mayor. Part of our discussion tonight is the proposed changes to C2 zoning. I think council, you all have zoning maps in front of you, but just to give you a general sense of where we're talking about when we reference C2 zoning within the city of Prescott. First, in the northwest corner there along Canton Street there's a section, but the majority of C2 zoning is along Highway 10 on the north part of the city of Prescott, and then there is a smaller amount down in the southeast corner along Highway 29 there. So currently right now permitted uses within C2 zoning are all the uses of the C1 zoning district, and then additionally C2 zoning allows for manufactured and mobile home, vehicle and equipment sales and service establishments, warehousing, wholesaling, and storage establishments. So what we're proposing in terms of the C2 changes is a removal of warehousing and wholesaling as a permitted use, striking it from the C2 completely, and then removal of transient trailer parks, campgrounds as a special use, and then moving manufactured and mobile homes, vehicle equipment sales and service establishments to a special use permit. And so when we're looking at special use permits, there's really 3 different types of reasons that you would move a use to a special use permit. One is they tend to generate significant traffic volumes and turning movements. They have operational characteristics that may have a detrimental impact on adjacent or nearby properties. And then additionally, they have other characteristics that might impact public health, safety, or welfare. So keeping those 3 characteristics in mind, what we're looking at then is manufactured mobile homes, vehicle and equipment sales and service establishments as special permitted uses, special use permits, I should say. Those uses specifically could be detrimental to adjacent property owners, specifically if you have a neglected property owner or business owner. Obviously, most, or if not all, of the property owners we currently have don't have that issue, but if we do run into it, it gives us a little bit more control over things like exterior finishes of the building, lighting, signs, landscaping, other things like that. And really, this change came about as a result of a recent approval. Planning Commission, one of the things they were looking at is a storage building. And one of the things they were requesting was for exterior finishes in the facade and also increased landscaping. So having that ability in terms of what we're looking at in approvals, special use permits gives us some of that. So just some examples of what a special use conditions could be on some of these types of uses. For instance, limited signage, no signs on vehicles if they were doing vehicle sales, no flag signs, banner signs, no maintenance on vehicle repair outside the building. Vehicles displayed or parked outside should be in good working condition. You could stipulate there would be a solid fence or some sort of landscape buffer, specifically if that use was permitted against a residential or adjacent to a residential neighborhood. Building facades facing public streets could have a higher standard for what their materials they are using. Additionally, no vehicles parked outside, for instance, longer than 30 days if it's a vehicle repair. And then you could control hours of operation to prevent noise pollution for those uses that are abutting residential neighborhoods. And just to give you an idea of what we could, what our special use permits in terms of our city code allow for control from landscaping type of construction all the way to traffic circulation down to increased parking if it was needed. Wholesaling and warehousing. So this requested removal is really due to the fact that wholesaling and warehousing doesn't generate daily activity of commerce or sales. Commercial districts generally we want to promote regular activity of buying and selling either goods or services to promote development along this district area. And right now wholesaling and warehousing, as you can see the three arrows pointed on the zoning map, I1, I2, and I3, those are all permitted uses within those districts. Transient trailer parks or trail parks, campgrounds. Currently this is a special use permit which allows the city to control the uses as we talked about, but it does not give the city the ability to just say no to everything, especially if one is approved with special use and conditions. A future use could then come forward and ask for the same thing. So really what it comes down for in this particular use is, do we want more than one? If we're only looking at one or we're looking at a specific spot in the city, then really a campground or transient trailer park is better to be used as a planned unit development. And what a planned unit development does, really it gives you a give and take in terms of control, whether, you know, for instance, a planned unit development, one that I've worked on the history was apartment. They wanted an increased height of their building. In exchange, the city required greater exterior materials be used so the building really looked nice. So in this case, we would give the ability for a trailer park or a campground to be permitted, but then we'd really have the ability to control how that whole layout, the site layout of everything about it is set up, and it can't be changed. One of the things that we look at is there's generally, at least the ones I've worked at, there's no additional cost for a planned unit development, at least administratively. There's $500 for a zoning change versus $500 for a special use permit. The one area where costs can come into play is if they don't work with the city beforehand and they come in with approved or a finished layout before having those conversations with us, and then they need to change a lot of things. So planned unit developments are permitted in terms of really, they run the gamut from agricultural, recreational, industrial, commercial, and residential. So with that, this item was brought before Planning Commission at their last meeting, and it was approved on October 4th by a vote of 5-0. The next step would be then tonight to have that first reading, potentially if you wished. The second, third reading could be waived, or it could be brought to a second reading at a later date. That is up to discussion. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor and council.
All right, it's a public hearing, so any questions from the council so far? Maureen?
I'd like to know where the ones that you're taking out would be going to. Do they go to the C1
In terms of,
You're talking
The
rezoning?
zoning stays C2, Maureen, it's just that
staying.
you'd have less permitted uses in a C2.
So it's not changing, we're
Oh.
just changing the language around
Oh.
it.
Okay, so you're not taking really anything out of there?
You're not
It's just-
changing the C2 zoning, you're just removing a few things that are allowed in the C2 zoning. Does that make sense?
No, not quite yet.
So just the items that are,
Limiting C2 to what can happen in there.
Yeah, but then if you wanted to put a campground, where would that be permitted other than in?
You would have to do a PUD.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so when we're talking about cost for PUD, I've had to redo complete plats
yeah,
for city stuff before, even previous. So you work with them and then you still end up having to redo it. And that's kind of, I think, what one of my concerns is. And I had talked to Dave earlier today too, just to get some feedback regarding River Falls. So that's my one apprehension, I guess, is just the campground piece because we are on the river. And some of this does fall along that, but then we also have it, and this, we have a preservation area
Yeah.
in here, but what we're thinking is somewhere in here eventually. We did get an email, I don't know if everybody got it from.
Yes, from one person.
Yeah. So, I guess I'd like to hear if other people have comments.
Yeah.
I had a in-depth conversation with Tim, the man that sent that letter, and basically his objection was that he perceived that doing a PUD was, number one, more expensive, and number two, a lot more restrictive, which I don't really know about. But he asked me to ask Matt to do a piece-by-piece comparison of a PUD and a special process, which is both involve public hearings and both involves having plans. So he just wanted to know the steps involved. And I suppose you could contact him.
Well-
We're talking about moving this farther along tonight, so I don't know if that can happen. He has no firm plans, but thoughts of plans.
So, Matt, the biggest difference between a PUD and a special use permit is PUD, you can say no. You can flat out say no. We're not doing it. And I think that's where some of the reservations are, obviously from Kim's perspective, you know. And I don't know if anybody else has any apprehension, so I guess it'd be nice to hear. I see a couple people that wanted to speak, so.
well, can I just follow up on that? So that
Sure.
one other additional piece is that a PUD comes with a site plan approval, on which you're in that site plan, exactly how it's laid out, and nothing can be changed as part of that PUD. So if they lay out a road in a certain way, or they put a campsite in a certain spot, or they put, I have a lateral here, you're approving all of that as part of that process, and none of that can be changed, or a special permit use is a little bit different in the fact they can still change things internally to the structure, or to the plat or the lot.
Yeah, I'm not against it, I just want to make sure it's the right thing. And I just don't know, which is why it'd be good to hear other feedback.
Well, I'll let the audience speak first before we go on. All right, if nothing from Matt or the council, I'll open it up to the public now to speak. Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Scott DeGross. I'm affiliated with Victory Fireworks. This wouldn't affect us in a direct way. Couple of questions though. Removing warehousing and wholesaling, they aren't defined anywhere in the ordinance that I can see or in state adopted building codes. So I think they should be defined. So if you're removing something, what are you removing? What are you taking away? Because is a back room a warehouse? Someone could argue that it is, I suppose, but question that always comes to mind, what problem are you trying to fix? So that's a question just rhetorical for the council. Another question is, so you had mentioned special use versus PUD, you can't say no, or you can say no on a PUD. Does that mean you can't say no on a special use? You can just put criteria, and are those criteria, if a use is taken away from that, but it already exists there, what does that entail for someone like that?
Okay.
And do they become non-conforming, and what are the repercussions of that? So those are the questions that I'd like the council to consider before waiving second and third readings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Scott. Anybody else in the audience like to speak on public hearing here? Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Langenfeld. I have some questions and some history. On the zoning map that was sent to us here, on here, you'll note that on the intersection of Hampshire Street, Pearl Street, and Orrin Road, in that little quadrant, that block there, you'll notice that there are 4 parcels there. You all see what I'm talking about? When was this map drawn?
2017.
In 2017. In 1985 and in 1987, I constructed 4 fourplexes in that quadrant. In order to construct those 4 fourplexes, I had to dedicate a third of the land to the city of Prescott for Orrin Road. I couldn't get a building permit without it. They wouldn't give it to me. I was also guaranteed at that particular time that if I paid for those assessments on Orrin Road, that I would never be assessed again, as that was the ordinance at the time. Everything that I've talked about in this thing has been put into writing except the change in the ordinance, which cost me $10,000. I received notice that the addresses of my properties were going to be changed arbitrarily by the city, capriciously and illegally.
Todd, we're
Now,
doing
no, this,
rezoning.
David, this is very important.
Keep it rezoning related.
I know we're talking rezoning.
Addresses have nothing to do with rezoning right now, I'm gonna tell you that. But go ahead.
If you don't want me,
Well, you go ahead, but
Thank you
again,
very
if we're gonna
kindly.
talk about too
thank
much
you
about
kindly.
addressing, I will
Thank
cut
you
it out.
kindly. Showing here that there are 4 parcels. I was put through the grinder by the past administrator and the city, in which the mayor did come to the realization that there are 4 fourplexes there, and that address was not going to be taken away. I have absolutely nothing but no confidence whatsoever in anything that you guys are doing. I have no idea why you're doing this. What are you trying to gain? What are you trying to do? In the past, your commitments have been broken. What you said was going to happen hasn't happened. And when you try to explain something and try to get it resolved so that it doesn't cost your children and your grandchildren hundreds of thousands of dollars, you get a cop coming down and roughing you up. Now, I think you should know that.
You're not really
Now
talking
going to the
Tom, and
zoning.
I will leave it at that.
All right,
I'll give
now
you one
go-
more chance.
Going to the
I'll cut you
zoning.
off.
Going to the zoning. I would request that you leave it alone. It's worked just fine. The changes that you're putting into here are things that will do nothing but create problems. I don't think half the people in the town understand what you're doing here. I have no idea why you're doing this. And I don't trust you. My property is zone C2. I don't trust you, if you do this, that you won't come back 10 years from now, my grandchildren, and tell them that they have to tear a building down. Or you're going to do something else. I don't trust you. And I don't think anybody in this room should trust you. The past performance has been untrustworthy.
If you wanna keep cutting us down, I'm gonna tell you to stop. It's a
So
zoning
my
issue.
The zoning issue is this then. Leave it the way that it is. Because any of the changes that you make will be reneged upon in the future at the discretion of any future council at the end of whatever it is.
That is true.
Leave it alone.
Thank you. All right.
Leave it alone.
Thank you, Todd. Anybody else? Any thoughts, comments on the rezoning? Go ahead, Randy.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Randy Murphy, Sternhouse Chevrolet. I'll be real brief. I just want you guys to understand that, so we've been in business since 1932, in our current location, 1976. But us, this is sort of a slap in the face, basically saying, just from our perspective,
I'm listening.
that our current locations, we're pulling out vehicle sales and service from a permitted use to a special use, which in our mind, in our view, and some of the state statute as well, is now basically saying you're not a permitted use, and we have been forever. So we are not, I guess, fully on board with this, just to be clear. For no particular reason outside of what some of the other people are saying is, what is the end game? What are we trying to fix? Is there something that needs to be fixed we're not aware of? But, we've done a lot of improvements, spent a lot of money on our facility, we constantly do. And then for the city to basically say, it's not, vehicle sales and service are not a permitted use, we're pulling that out, just gives us some reservations. I guess I'll leave it at that. We don't feel that it's maybe necessary, but just want to be clear on that. That's really all we had to say. So, thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
You bet.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Mary. I work for GGR that owns some of the land around Canton and Pearl. And I haven't done my homework. I'm just wondering if you can explain in layman terms to me why there's change. I mean, does it improve the city? Is it something that the owners of this have asked for? Or is there like a potential virus that's coming along that we should know about that we're trying to stop it, which would be the special use? I'm just not sure of why we're changing it, but if somebody could just say, hey, we had the homeless come in and they wanted 4 acres of whatever, and we decided to do special use because it was protecting, whatever. In layman terms, can you explain to me what brought this on and what we should be expecting, or why? Or is it because there were too many buildings, doing car rental, or too many buildings doing trucking, or too many? Is there some concern for what the city has decided to do that we should know about? That's all. I mean, we're perfectly fine with the way it is, but if it's going to improve our potential building of the property, maybe it's good for us. I don't know. I just wondered if you could explain, just because we're walking in on this and what happened that we're going to do this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Would you allow me 30 more seconds?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
From my understanding on the non-conforming use, which would categorize the ones that are currently in there that are pulled out of that permitted use. If there's a natural disaster or some significant event, a fire, tornado, and were damaged more than 50% of their appraised value, they'd have to come back and ask for permission to rebuild.
I would say, I'll triple check state statute, but I believe they say no. You have the right to read.
It is in the state statute. I have it. We're reading it.
Yeah.
So that was another one of our concerns where, correct. Sorry.
Yeah, state statute, and they used to change that. It was 50% gone, you're non-conforming, you'd have to make it conform or get a special use. the state statute changed 2-3 years ago that says a non-conforming use could be rebuilt in exactly the same spot it was.
Based
State
on,
statute.
yeah, at what levels of damage and what footprints
Doesn't
and that
matter,
sort
it
of
could be
thing. so.
completely burnt down, and the state statute now says you can replace it in the exact same footprint, basically the same style. Now, some of you would probably improve it, I would think, but. So, any other public comments?
Is that, one question about that, is that you think or you're sure?
About 99.9%, because I read that statute about 6 months ago. Because I had someone in, so the city I work in, someone had that where, well, if my building burns down for insurance purposes, and I got him the state statute, I sent it to him saying you could put it in exactly the same footprint. City can't say, well, you're too close, too far away, you're allowed to go in the exact same footprint as you were before.
Without a special use permit?
Without a, well, and I'd say without a special use permit, because you've been there. And if I have to, the city could give you a letter saying here's state statute and you would be allowed. All right, I'm gonna answer a little bit unless someone has one. Go ahead. Come on up, young man.
My name is Pat Bakajic. I'm associated with the mobile home park in Prescott here. And our frontage road is zoned C2. And this would directly impact us because they're taking mobile home off of there. First of all, I'd like to say that, you know, I do not think this should go through. Beyond that, I guess I would like somebody in the city, whether it be the city attorney or the mayor or the minutes of the meeting, to address the entire aspect of, you know, I'm going to call it grandfathered, that we're grandfathered in. We've been doing this for 60 years. And I'd like that addressed and either given back to us in a letter form or on the minutes of the meeting, you know, whatever, some way that we can say, you know, that they've addressed at least our concerns about what we're doing today and that it's very specific what we're, you know, what are the things that are going to cause us to then get a special use permit. But my understanding of this is that we will not have to get a special use permit even though we are being taken off. And same with the car dealership or a equipment dealership or whatever. Again, all of these happening for many decades, and now all of a sudden we're just going to say, okay, we're not going to have that in there anymore. And that, you know, so I just want to make sure that that is really well documented here at this stage before this is passed.
You bet. Anybody else in the audience? As long as you keep it to zoning, Todd.
Mike, the other comments at the end of the meeting.
Yep,
Thank
I
you.
understand.
Thank you very
The other gentleman had a chance too.
Thank you very much. Is this, so I have apartments down there, we have parking lots for apartments. So you're telling me that a guy can't put a for sale sign on his car in my parking lot down there? If this goes through?
Does not say that, Todd.
What does it say then? I'm asking.
Is that a car sales? Are you doing car sales in your lot?
No, I am not.
Then you're not.
I'm
Then
not,
it's not an
no.
issue, is it?
Well, it is an issue, if you,
If you're doing car sales down there, it is. It has nothing to do with car sales. I can put a car for sale sign in my yard. You can put it in your yard.
well, I have a tenant to put a car, put a
Now, if you
for-
start putting a bunch of cars and you bought them and put them there,
No,
then
I'm
that's a
asking.
different story.
I
Nope, I understand.
have a tenant that got a ticket for $110 because he put a for sale sign on his car parked on the street for 6 hours in front of the building. 110. He and his wife work 15 an hour, minimum wage. Okay, they worked their tails off. He's trying to sell a car. Got a $110 ticket. I've never heard of that in my entire
Yeah.
life. That's
And
why I'm
I'll check with
asking
police.
if someone has,
It's not private property, you probably could sell. If it's private property, you probably do that. I don't see any issues where you could not. Public property, yeah, if you sit there and leave it
So
on
if
Main
this,
Street
so
for
if this goes through,
every
then
day.
it's okay to have, if one of the tenants wants to sell a car,
Yes, it would, Todd.
he can do that.
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I'll speak up a little bit, you know, what problem are we fixing? There's no problem right now. We don't want certain house to close. I don't want the, you know, Pat, your place to shut down. I don't want anybody's to. That's not the intent of this city, is to get rid of businesses. I'm sorry if you feel like we're attacking, we're not. What we're trying to do is, you guys are all good businesses. But what if we get a guy that decides to open it? Two things, highway commercial, you want your city to look halfway decent. You want sales and services, people come and go, look like an active community. And I think the intent is we don't want a bunch of pole buildings up. Everyone complains how high their taxes are. Well, a pole building's cheaper to put up, I understand that. But guess what, we're trying to say, let's make the buildings look a little nicer, number one. Here's city, it's pole building city. That would be one reason why we don't want this storages. And if we do, we want the buildings to look nice. Dealerships, you know, we got certain house, do a fine job. We get another dealership in town and there's one of these fly-by-nights, and I'm gonna just say that. You don't wait till a problem shows up, say, oh, we should have rezoned something. Why not rezone it now? Okay, our dealerships come in, let's make sure they're not, and I'll pick on Auto Works a little bit, but they used to have 4 or 5 cars sitting out there that could use a little work. That's what we try to prevent, is to have that, oh, here we're coming to the city and there's that car dealership and he's got all those junk cars sitting out in the front, or we got a bunch of pole buildings that's like, well, you know, again, I don't pick on the fireworks neither, they got their pole buildings. It'd been nice if they had a little brick facade, looks a little nicer for the city. That's the intent. Campgrounds, you know, we've got Kim Christensen. Yeah, down where he's at, C2, makes sense to leave a campground there. But if we leave it in there, guess what? Between Dollar General and that daycare, that could be a KOA there because we allow it. And we couldn't say no because it's owned property. They own the property. Do we want a KOA right there on Highway 10? Probably not. So the intent is to plan a little bit more to make sure we have nice looking facilities, and the ones that do come in, again, the car dealership, you guys keep it up great, but if someone else doesn't, and pretty soon we got junk cars sitting along Highway 10. Oh, here's Prescott, the pole buildings with all the junk cars or the this and that. You all maintain yours fine, but we're trying to prevent any future businesses coming. We still have vacant land along Highway 10 and down along 35. We want the city to look nice. We want to prevent things from happening. So making it a special use, yeah, you guys are all grandfathered in, and again, if you want, we'll pull up state statute. I get the attorney type a letter saying you exist if it burns down 100%. You can bill it right back to where it's at. If we want a little simple letter, we'd give you that. But the fact is, we're trying to prevent future problems. There's none right now, but why wait till there are some? It's a foolish thing to do, in my opinion. What else did I have? Apartments, yeah, it's not intended to put you out of business. That's about it. And we can get you something on the non-conforming, because the state statute states that. And everybody that exists now, here's a letter that says state statute says. Any other thoughts? And it's still open to the public, so if anyone has any thoughts after I spoke, you can still step forward and ask any other questions. But it's not the intent, and we would get you some type of non-conforming interpretation from our attorney and the state statute that it references for your records, if that would make you. I don't have a problem with that. Patrick, come on back up.
Can these letters that you're discussing, can they happen before this is voted in?
Yeah, we can do something. We can do this a first reading tonight. Maybe we even change it before the third reading.
Okay.
But we can do the first reading tonight with the understanding that there's some concerns and get the letters out to anybody that wants one. Here's state statute number. City attorney reviewed it, and yes, you would all be able to maintain and build exactly what's there. Exactly. If anything, we'd like you to improve again. Pole building, maybe we say put some brick corners on it or something, but we could probably do something like that. I don't know if the council has any thoughts on that.
I think we need to discuss this a little bit more. Dar, I don't know if you're open to having an ordinance.
Pardon?
I don't know if it would fall underneath ordinance that we would need to have this meeting to have additional discussion around it. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like we're getting a lot of.
Well, this is the discussion you're gonna have. I mean, these are the main concern you'd have. You could take it back to ordinance committee.
I'm
There's
just
really not a
wondering-
big rush. but-
No, yeah, I'm just wondering, like, I mean, I'm even looking and seeing some of these people's businesses that they have here, and I'm like, we got a zone, I mean, we got apartment buildings and a commercial zone. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like,
Right, well, technically Todd's building should be in like an R3, but if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, Jane, the ordinance goes R2, you're allowed to do this, and then R3 says whatever's allowed in R2 will also be in C3, and then C1 is whatever's in R3. So that's how it kind of gets, it allows some of that. Well, maybe you don't want to allow it all now. You know, you should try to keep it separated somewhat. And a lot of cities somewhat do that. And as they've grown, they've learned, well, there's not a good mix. You know, apartment building in a C2 and it's surrounded by commercial. So they're starting to move them out and say, no, we don't necessarily want that in a C2 or C3. And that's, I think, the intent here is try to clean up something that used to work good, but now it's, is it the best, you know? You know, Todd should be different because it could do a little more, a little less, I don't know. But
think we
you
should,
can throw it back, I don't.
We should define the warehousing though, for sure.
Yeah.
I do like that point.
That was a good point that he made.
We don't have anything, or do we?
No.
Well, you're gonna run into a lot of issues if you start defining everything, and there's a lot of things within our zoning districts. The whole intent of leaving it more broad is so that allows you to, as a city, and any city,
Interpret the
to
warehouse.
interpret it as you
And
will.
that's kind of the point I'm getting at, is like, do we need to take more of a holistic look at this? Because, I mean, we're talking right now and we're saying like, okay, Todd's got, you know, the apartment buildings over here, it's zoned C2, should it be? I don't know. I mean, we even talked about, you know, future stuff with zoning, and I'm just wondering, like, is this a more holistic conversation we need to have? Because again, I can't comment on these other ones. I don't know exactly what it says, or if there's any definitions, or if like, if we need to take a bigger look at it. I'm just throwing that out there because I'm, yeah,
And
I'm not sure.
I see Matt's point, you know, warehousing and wholesaling, it's not day-to-day sales.
Yeah.
So then it falls under warehouse and wholesaling. You know,
I think-
it's where it's some weeks it might be busy, the wholesaling, and other weeks it'd be just storing. So there's a difference between that and the retail that, you know, along the highways, you want the restaurants and the retail businesses, so. But again, I put it out there, you know, we can do a letter, or at least come back with the attorney. If you want to put it back to the ordinance committee, we can. I know we have about one or two businesses like to put a storage building, and this was gonna be one of those. Well, we still try to control it without the zoning, just saying, well, we'd like some brick, like we did with Jimmy French was down on, how does his was on what?
Yeah.
C2.
C2.
He's C2.
Yeah, he didn't have any problem at all with that.
But there again, you know, well, where does it say you have to make me do that? You know, but in the city, I've seen other cities that do stuff I'm surprised they're allowed to do, because I don't think the ordinance says that, but I'd like to be one of those, you know, if we're gonna do that, it should state in the ordinance, you know? We want some brick front and some landscaping, make it look nicer. Matt?
And just to be clear with that project, we requested updated exterior materials. We didn't get any new exterior site plan in terms of elevations. We asked for a landscaping plan that never came.
Yeah.
So the thing is you need to do this before these things happen, before they get to planning commission.
Right.
So they're as part of the approvals. They're not coming after the fact, because now we're trying to get them as the building's built, and it doesn't
Yep.
work.
Yeah. So, I guess I'll leave it to council. We can, well, and we still got an open public hearing, so anybody else that still wants to talk, wants to talk. If we're done, again, the thought is Bailey thinks maybe we go back to ordinance. I don't have a problem with.
Or planning. I mean, just somebody to make me look at this a little holistically. I don't know if ordinance is the right one. I'm just throwing it out there.
Even if we had staff look up some of the concerns that were brought up, you can do the first reading, because we still got two more, still can get shot down. In the meantime, we can look up the non-conforming use. There's non-conforming use and non-conforming setbacks and so forth. So there's two different non-conformings, and we could look up what the ordinance says on both, or the state statute says on those. So we can say all we want. State statute overrules us, okay? We can just get a quick opinion from our attorney, pull up the state statute for everyone to have, saying here's where you would be protected, and kind of go from there.
I have a question about grandfathering. If people get a personal letter for grandfathering, how does the city keep track of what it agreed to? I mean, is that, I'm assuming we have a copy of correspondence, but where else could one look it up so that it doesn't get lost, you know?
I know what you're saying.
Like
I mean, you
DC
could, yeah, you put a deed attachment on the deed, but even then, you gotta be careful of what the state statutes change. And I think you refer to state statutes, because we can't overrule the state on that. And yet we can say, you know, through the state's interpretation, it's not the city's intent to ever have a business that's doing very well to be shut down. That's not our intent. It's not the intent of this at all. It's the future ones that come in. Or you guys selling, or any of you sell, and someone else comes in and all of a sudden we got a junkyard out front. Well, yeah, it's not conforming, but we're trying to prevent any future if that would happen. Or pole buildings. We just want pole buildings all the way up Highway 10. full building city. You can still public comment, you can step up.
I'm still Mary, I'm still working for
Yep.
GGR.
Yep.
Okay, so you know where our property is
Mhm.
that, okay, so part of it is residential, and then the back part of it is C2. You're doing lots there for the residential, and in the back, like, people need storage. Now, you know that we put up the pole sheds on Canton. We have brick on it, we have, you know, they're
Right.
very nice looking,
Mhm.
whatever. So we try to do that, but, so now we're talking across the street and back, you know, where the housing is, which is residential, and the back is C2. So we were, you know, our plan was eventually, you know, a year or two, whatever, to put up some storage units there. So even if the people that have the housing or buy a lot or whatever want, you know, for their lawnmowers and whatever, it would be storage. So then if we decide to do this and this all passes, we are still allowed to do that. We just have to have a special use permit.
Right, we might say we want you to fence it so the residents aren't looking at the backs of all your buildings with all your
Right,
storage.
there might be
That's-
different-
That would be what the intent of this is to do.
Okay. Say, okay, well, you know, these people, you know, are you gonna put up trees to block it, or you're gonna decide, tell us then, you get the special use permit for your storage, but you need to do this or put it,
Right,
whatever.
make a-
But you can't see it from the highway, but I can see if people take a detour, they're gonna go through that.
But that would be the difference, you know, on long, if it's off the highway,
Right.
are we much concerned about the look as on the highway? Maybe, maybe not.
So it's more controlled by you saying, okay, we can't see their property by the highway, so they don't need this, but it would be nice if you did this, but we just work together more with the city than just slapping it up.
Right.
That's what the special,
And as
okay.
someone else said, I don't remember if it was Todd, but councils change.
Right.
But there again, they may have a little different look than we would say, well, they want 20-foot high fence because they don't want to see anything.
Right, it
Can't
all
say that that would
depends.
never happen because, as
Okay.
Todd would say, there are other councils that come up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Still public comment, I'm taking them a little bit.
To address Ms. Otwell's concern about where would you look for things written down and so forth, you can't. You can't find them. I mean, if you have them, they're not honored. You can't find issues, but I have letters from agreements that have not been honored. So
Right.
you can't do it.
Todd, yep.
Again, I would ask you to put this away. It's not necessary. Those of us that own property along there don't want it. There's nobody gonna put a KOA in that lot along 10 there. I mean, that ain't gonna happen. The only person that's gonna, you wanna put something in there you can make some money on, or you can invest in, and a KOA campground along Highway 10 ain't the answer. That's not gonna happen. And nobody's gonna put a bowling alley in there, because they look for it. But you might be able to find something that will fit in there if they got some cooperation. I might add, a dollar store in there. How many tens of thousands of dollars did the dollar store lose because that road was shut down and you guys somebody couldn't get the contractor to go in there, and that road sat shut down for 30, 45, 60 days. How many thousands and thousands
Todd,
and thousands
this is
of
not part
dollars
of the
did they
zoning.
lose?
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
very kind.
Yep.
Just don't trust you.
Any other comments, council? Any other thoughts? Again, it might be a way of solving a problem where it shows up, but these people have their concerns too, so. Any other comments, anybody? If not, I would never entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Second, to approve closing the public hearing. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the first reading and possible waiver of second, third reading of approval for ordinance 0621, the ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance section 63524, Highway Commercial District C2.
I would, I'll make that motion, but I'd like to make it with with an idea that we would get letters out to current owners before the second reading.
We'll have them, yeah.
Just to be clear, what are we saying when we say letters?
Non-conforming issue, correct?
Yes, right, the non-conforming.
It's called grandfathering. I think now they call it non-conforming. It's for the grandfathering thing out, just saying that you're going to rebuild. I believe that's it, but that's where you're going to check on that.
So just the letters, just.
So what we're going to do is, I don't think we're going to get the letters out. It's going to come to the next council meeting for council review, as well as we can send them out to them as a draft letter. It won't be a final.
So the letters are just gonna clarify the state statute as it relates to non-conforming
Non-conforming.
uses and
Maybe have Phil
disasters that.
just give us his 2 cents worth, so that everyone here has something to look at, feel comfortable, and then there again, maybe we get it and we don't like what it says, and we might not care to send the letters out to them because we might just shoot it down. So I got a motion to approve just the first reading with the condition that we do a little research on the non-conforming, have a letter drawn up. It'll be in the council packet, it'll be on the council agenda as a draft, and all of you can find that on the city's website. If you want a copy, you can come up to City Hall and ask for it, and then we'll give you a copy. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I got a motion made, second, to approve the first reading and research the non-conforming, get a letter ready to give to everybody, and the council will review it before we actually say, yes, that's an official letter. Is there any other discussion on that motion?
I would like to take a closer look at this across the board. So I cannot support this motion as it stands. I would like to take the time to address all of the concerns that the business community has brought forward, and also to kind of fine tune and look a little closer at the entire proposal. So that's all I have to say.
Are you suggesting what Bailey suggested, a pull-back look at a bigger view of zoning and in general?
10-4.
Some of these I don't understand why they're zoned a certain way.
All right, got a motion made, second. Any other public comments on that motion? You can always get turned and sent back to committee later if you'd so choose to, so. No other discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I
I need a roll call. Tom?
No.
Rob?
No.
Dar?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No. And I'll say yes. I break the tie for now, we'll just get the first reading through. Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. We'll go to the next item on the agenda is the second reading, possible waiver of the third reading for the approval of ordinance 0421, ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance 421-5 park hours.
Just changing this from an opening time of 6 a.m. rather than 5 a.m. So park hours will be closed from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 4-21 with the waiver of the second and third reading.
Second?
Okay, motion made to approve the second reading and waiver of the third reading
I'm sorry.
for, I thought that, ordinance 0421 park hours. Is there any other discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next up on the agenda is the second reading and possible waiver of third reading of approval of ordinance 0520, an ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance 235-8, animals restricted on public grounds and cemeteries.
So basically, we are requiring everyone to have their pets on a leash from now on and not to exceed 15 feet of that leash.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance 05-21 and waive the third reading.
Second?
Motion made second to approve the second reading, waive the third reading of ordinance 0521, animal restriction to public grounds. Is there any other discussion on that motion?
Have we gotten any feedback at all from anybody
No
else?
emails.
Uh-oh.
I haven't
Patrick,
gotten
what'd you
any
get?
emails.
I had several residents in my area who do use the park in my neighborhood for exercising their pets, who are opposed to this.
What are they opposed to?
Leash?
A
Just
leash.
the leash?
Yeah, they like, both of them have 2 dogs, They take them out with the tennis ball thrower and use them. I know one, she's got a couple high-strung golden retrievers. Says she does make an effort, and I've seen her to make an effort to not be there when there are kids there, because they're a little high-strung. The other folks are there when we're there with our kids and do a fine job with it. I'm wondering if there's a possibility to, rather than make this in the entire city, maybe carve it out a little bit and say, okay, we could make one park available to have pets off leash. We currently have no other options in the city. River Falls Dog Park, I drive by there every day and I stop just to check it out. It actually does have a sign that says River Falls residents only, and the Hastings one is the same thing. So kind of what we're doing here, unfortunately, is making it that if anybody does want to exercise their pet off of their property in any kind of an open space, they really don't have a place to go, and you can't do it at a state park, and I get it. Unfortunately, I think the reason, I'm not exactly sure, but I think the reason why we're doing this is because of a few bad actors. It's the way things generally work. So I'm wondering if maybe we could roll this back a little bit and think about, like I said, a carve out and say a certain park for even certain hour. I don't know. But again, I did have a couple folks who, one was very not happy. The other one said they flat out would just not follow the rule. And I know that's not a good situation to be putting people in either. I doubt that the cops are going to be looking for them. Our police is pretty busy. But that's where I'm sitting.
We do have public lands, so there are public lands that people hunt that you can actually go to. So that's not that far. I mean, I've taken my dog there and ran him a couple times. But you just have to be aware that other people might be hunting, so during hunting season, you don't go there.
Yeah.
Well, I take my daughter's dogs to Hastings all the time. Or I used to.
I do. But
You could take a bit of the compost site and fence it off and put a dog park out there.
I mean, we've had ideas of that. I just think right now, like inside the city, I just don't think it's a good idea. I mean,
Unless it's fenced in.
yeah, unless it's like a dog park that we have, or that's the expectation of
designated
when
dog
you're
park.
going there.
Or area.
Because I have not seen people be able to recall their dogs very frequently.
And I'm
That's
again,
the
I'm-
problem with the bad apples, Patrick.
Yeah,
That's
it
what you
is.
gotta
It
tell
is.
them.
It is the problem with the bad apples, and so as an idea, the park that's next to my neighborhood, the far end of it that is open down here on the corner, that is recessed. Do we have any plans to develop that?
Yes, we've given that park to the Fairy Wonderland.
Is that what that is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just double
So
checking.
that group we said we would let them use that park, as a
okay.
memorial.
I didn't know how far. I didn't know if it was going all the way down there or if it was up in our area. Okay.
We told them they could have the whole thing, and they started working with the
Yep. No,
the
that's
zoo guy. I can't remember his
Okay.
name.
What about McGee?
Yeah.
McGee, we have a lot of the trail stuff going through there. We could take a look at that. I mean, I kind of like Dave's idea of the compost. I mean, we have that land down there,
Either
and
that
it's
or-
out of town.
That's
Either that or you
closer
take
to
an acre of
Hastings.
McGee's, 10 acres, and you put 1 acre into a dog park.
Yeah, so-
I think that's
And I
they
do-
should pursue that more.
And I do think, from what I can see, or what I've heard, from residents general, especially, also on, the social media site where a lot of our residents comment, a lot of people want a dog park.
And I know that
It's-
we've
it- that-
talked about it. I mean, we have land
yeah.
in several areas where we could just easily fence it in, but right now it's like we have a lot of stuff kind of spoken for, and I kind of like the idea of it just being a little bit out of town. So if dogs are going nuts and barking, we're not going to get complaints from neighbors,
That,
because that is a big
passerbys,
thing when
yeah.
dogs see balls. I mean, I got 2 dogs, so they go nuts.
So can we
So,
get
I
that
mean-
put on the next park agenda?
Yeah, we can talk about that on the 20th. Yep.
maybe,
I just don't think
and maybe
that's
with that
right.
in mind, I don't know.
Did it, the wrong date?
Hold this back a little bit
I think it's the 18th.
18th, my bad.
I'm gonna say no, because this dog part won't go in for at least 2 years. So
Yeah,
hold this back.
it'll be a while.
Isn't gonna
But
happen.
I
18th.
kind of like the idea that you proposed about
I think
putting
I've been telling everybody the
hours.
20th. Crap.
you know, but
Sorry.
I think people wouldn't. I mean, I don't think that would work in the long run, because I don't think people will really pay attention to the hours.
And I know everybody's got different, you know, yeah.
And like you said, the high-strung labs, they could say we go and no one else is there, and someone shows up in the lab going nuts on them, and you get complain
Hounds.
about that, you know? That's the problem.
Hounds go nuts.
Any other discussion? So we got a motion made second to approve the second reading, waive the third for the animal restricted public grounds and cemeteries. Had some discussion, so it's something to think about. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed?
Nay.
Alright, motion carried.
And we'll add that to the 18th. The 18th
18th, okay.
Parks meeting, not 20th.
Check into what the cost of putting up a fence is, probably is what we're gonna have to do. That's the biggest thing.
It's gone
Fence.
way up lately.
Yeah, I'm sure it has.
Yeah, really.
All right, next item on the agenda is the first reading and possible waiver of the second, third reading approval of ordinance 0721, an ordinance to repeal and replace city ordinance sections 64-6, ward description. So this is the one that basically the state is telling us, you gotta redistrict everything, and this is to update the wards.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 07-21 and skip the second and third reading.
I'll second it.
Right, and the map is in our packets, just if you care to know. It's ways back. So, a motion was made, second approved, first reading and waive the second and third, correct?
Yep.
Of ordinance 0721, ward descriptions. Is there any other discussion or questions on the motion?
I kind of looked into this with a jaundiced eye, thinking, well, what is the state, the county doing some gerrymandering? And I don't believe this is the case. It's a pretty straight ahead.
Is it by population?
shift.
Population
Yeah.
That's what I
division
thought.
So
equally.
it's I don't think it's of any concern.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of ordinance, waive first and waive the second, third of ordinance 721, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
My
Opposed?
ward just disappeared.
Yeah, well, not it, it will, yeah. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is Public Works. Pay request number 1 for the reconditioning of the 250,000 gallon water tower to Classic Protective Coatings, the amount of $202,967.57. There's a letter in here, I believe, from
KLM.
Cedar Corp that says that they've checked it all out and they feel it's a reasonable payment.
I'll make a
Or,
motion.
KLM, I'm sorry, yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the payment, first payment in the amount of $202,967.50.
Second,
All right, motion made, second, approve the payment amount of $202,967.50 to KLM. We still have some money being held back.
Oh,
They're not completed, so we still,
Yeah, we're not.
yeah, they're not even close to completed, so this is just a portion of it. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Well, number 3, discussion. Who would like to take that one?
I can at least start it, and I'll turn it over to Greg. So this past Friday, September 24th, we received a test for well number 3 that came back as high in nitrates at 12.1 milligrams per liter. We had a confirmation test that also came back again at 12.1. These exceed the DNR safe standards for drinking water. So as a result, the city of Prescott has shut off well number 3 as part of its standard rotation back on September 9th, 2021. And now we're using well 2 and 4 for all water service. So we are in the process of looking at options. There are 3 that we'll be discussing that Greg will be talking about here in just a second. We are in the process of waiting for the DNR to officially issue our notice of, or not our notice of violation, but working with the EPA to get us a letter. And once that happens, we'll be setting up a meeting with the DNR to discuss remedies, and we will have to be signing something, a letter with the DNR stating what are we planning to do to rectify well number 3. So there are 3 options that are in the memo that was discussed that Greg put together. And really what we're looking for tonight is just a recommendation for which option you want to proceed with in terms of a study. Each option would cost us some money to just at least study it as an option in terms of if we want to move forward, whether it be a new well house in a new location for a new house, nitrate removal, or digging well number 3 deeper. So I'll turn it over to Greg to talk a little bit more about the detail.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, do you have more to say? Because you might be
He's gonna present, yes.
covering.
Oh,
Okay,
I was just
I'll wait
gonna,
then.
I had a very quick time here to kind of pull together some very high-level discussion points. I don't want us to get into the weeds and details too much on this. In general, the DNR will have to, will certainly have an approval over what we ultimately do, and they will want to look at a couple of options. They won't necessarily just want us to only pursue one solution. Probably want to look for a couple of things as a cost and viability standpoint. So we'll have those discussions, like as Matt was saying, with them. But as I summarized, I could go through these real quick, or if you just had a quick question, Maureen, I could just hit that maybe.
Well, I was wondering if we're sure that the nitrate is due to the shallowness of well 3.
That's probably a likely standpoint,
Okay.
yeah, that it is the shallower well. The other 2 wells are about 100 feet or deeper.
And do we know what the nitrate levels on those wells?
Yeah, they were, one was 4, it's micrograms per liter. 10 is the threshold.
Yeah.
And I think they were at 4 and 8. I think it was.
What are the depth of the other
One's
ones?
at
It's roughly 4.
4.6 for well 2 and 7.4 for well 4.
Okay.
What's the depth of well 4?
I didn't bring all that stuff with me,
That's okay.
but it's about 100 feet deeper. But well 3 is about 100 feet shallower than those other 2 wells. And
Okay.
generally the nitrates tend to be on the upper lenses of the aquifer. They don't tend to be as deep, but I don't know if that's due to their density or solubility at various densities of water. But
So the deeper you go, the less likely we are to leach all down there?
it's generally what you see is the deeper wells generally don't have the nitrates. You can also then get into other constituents that are deeper, arsenic,
Yeah.
or radium, or iron. So there's a trade-off too, on that water
probably
constituent that you're
Hard water.
trying to
Yeah.
get and trying to avoid. So, but just to go through very quickly some of the 3 common options that could be looked at. One would be to, let's just say, construct a new well and well house. We'd have to abandon the old well. We'd have to perform a well site investigation, then ultimately acquire land for the selected site. And then these are very, very, very simplified. This whole process would be fairly lengthy, but design and construct a test well. So a test well would be drilled at that site, a smaller scale well, but at the same depth and in the vicinity of where the permanent well would be. It would be test pumped. We would have to be then testing that water for all the constituents, especially nitrates, but all the other drinking water requirements. Once all that would be approved, we would construct a new well house, any infrastructure to connect that into the water main system. Instead of abandoning the old well, demoing the well house. I would say cost projections could be upwards of 1.7 million, but these are really, really off-the-cuff numbers right now. So I don't want anybody to ingrain that too much into their memory, but just in terms of scale, if nothing else. Another option would be to treat for nitrate removal. One of the most proven methods for nitrate removals is reverse osmosis membrane technology. One benefit of that is you do also get a lot of other constituents out of the water, arsenic, even things, this new chemical that is being, not new, it's been around since the 50s, but PFAS, PFAS, it's an acronym for a chemical that you're now seeing in groundwater. There's no DNR threshold on that yet, but I think it is probably coming. But reverse osmosis membrane technology is used for treating that. So there's also added benefit of not just nitrate removal, but other things. In that, what could happen would be you could leave well 3 intact as is, leave the well the same depth, but add on to the building and put in this, call it an RO system, because I'm struggling saying reverse osmosis today. So that would be, try to streamline through that. Basically, what the first thing we would do is do a pilot study on the well itself, where they come in. We would be working with another engineering firm that specializes in water treatment, stuff they do every single day, and they would do a pilot study, scale it down, and probably look at maybe even 1 or 2 other options for physical or chemical treatment to remove nitrates, and we would select the one that works the best and have at the best cost too.
Are you seeing any type of electrolysis type stuff coming here? Because it's big in Japan, it's big in the UK, and it's not dead water, which is the best part about it.
Right.
It actually goes back and creates the water to be more alkaline, which is what we need.
I've seen some of that discussed recently.
Mm-hmm.
More of the RO membranes, just because the industry has been up and running longer than what you've mentioned. But yeah, it doesn't mean that couldn't potentially be.
And that pulls out like all kinds of stuff out, and that's why it's so big in Japan.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think because they get so much of their water from seawater and brackish type of water.
I'm just wondering if that technology is starting to come in, because honestly, if we look at it from a long-term perspective, even from a water treatment plant perspective, it'd be great to see what options down the line with electrolysis are coming, because I don't know if it's going to get here fast enough, but
it is on the inception point, I think, in the U.S. But and it's for different types of treatment too. It can be used for processed water, or here we're talking, of course, potable drinking water.
Correct.
But it is out there.
Gases we can
definitely.
use to burn.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is we can produce gas to burn.
But with the reverse osmosis, so what's that going to bring the nitrate level down to?
It can get to very, very, very low levels. It's pretty well proven to almost to zero, because they capture it on a thin membrane filtration system that will capture that, and then it's backwashed.
It's option number 2.
It's fairly energy intensive. I think all equipments are, but it is a very proven methodology. It's not cheap. The membranes wear out over time. You have to replace them. They backwash, and I don't know what the lifespan of them are. You maybe get a year. I guess it depends on how much you're pumping through and what your backwash load is on the what you're capturing. So
will the DNR have a timeline in mind for us that would mean that we couldn't study whether electrolysis, is that what you called it, would be a better option in the longer run?
they would, what they're going to, I guess I can't speak exactly on behalf of the DNR, but they'll do with every community, they have a water system sanitary survey, which is your checklist of things that are out of compliance, things you got to update or change or whatnot. The one thing with having one of your wells shut off would be your duty rating on running 2 wells. You want to have one as a backup, certainly, and you don't want to be running these wells requiring them to be, say, running 12 to 14 hours a day. If both wells have to run 12 to 14 hours a day to provide your typical water, you're getting into that extended duty rating. So having the third, of course, drops things down. It also gives the ability, if you have well went out, you're pumping 2. Now if you have 2 running for many years, that goes down, you're really running thin on water supply. So I can't speak on behalf of what they would say regarding that, if it were to wait wait, a couple of years to do this.
Great. Just because then you can actually get away from using fluoride and chlorine.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
don't need it anymore in your water system, and people are drinking that crap anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, it would, actually, I suppose the DNR will probably have, at this next meeting we have with them, we'll probably have some summary of that target that they'll probably want to have us have some solution.
We were just looking at the aqua filter that we draw from, the Jordan aqua filter, and it's really extensive. It covers almost half of Wisconsin,
Yeah, it's a big.
maybe even more than half.
Yep.
And also some of Minnesota and Iowa as well. Do we know anything about the stability of the aqua filter?
Stability meaning like the
Longevity?
longevity of it. I know studying some of the wells I've seen in like St. Croix County area, the western Wisconsin area. Oh gosh, it was probably in like 2000 they were actually seeing the aquifer levels dropping. And now actually, I'd say in the last that didn't last very long though. I would say in the last, say, 8 years ago, they saw these levels rebounding back up. Just looking at static water levels of wells that are all recorded. There's a lot of well data. Every well is kind of like a little probe test into the aquifer to look at, where are so you can kind of see what is the gradient of and the depth of the aquifer. But it has seemed to have rebounded back a little bit in terms of volume.
I just don't see pollution levels really getting that much better, honestly.
No. Right,
with
no.
the amount of stuff that we do use in agriculture. So it's like if we're gonna have to filter, it's either, we can dig a new well, but are we gonna just run into this type
Right.
of issue
Same thing.
Well, and
down the line?
Correct.
Is kind of what I'm getting at. So I don't know
Right.
if it's something.
We're probably
that we
gonna have to treat them all eventually.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. So do we look at it from
Nitrates are
that?
so soluble in water.
Yeah.
We have one well already that's at a 7.
Yeah.
7 point, yeah,
So
4. So it's
what
getting.
happens to the membrane
Yeah.
when you change it out? That's gotta be disposed of.
Yeah,
properly,
and I don't
right?
know the exact age, how long the membranes can last. It's going to be really based on the system, how many membranes they have. Usually they run in parallel, I believe, and what the flow and loading rate is of that. And that membrane technology has improved a lot over the last 5 or 6 years with RO systems. So, and that would be part of the study. The study would be able to not just say, here's your sizing, but they'd also kind of be able to predict your membrane life and replacement costs on that too.
Based on, what we're looking at, I think treating the well is probably gonna be our best option right now.
Yeah.
And go with the reverse osmosis for now, and then down the road, maybe we'll have more studies done on electrolysis and other options.
Yeah, they seem to
But
be pretty.
we need to bring
compact.
this back online.
Yeah,
If we have a big fire,
we have a problem.
well, they're gonna have to turn that well back on.
Yeah.
And this is similar to, I'm working with another community that has manganese levels that have now, the DNR, this kind of got lumped in with some legislation. The EPA just said, oh, and by the way, DNR, now manganese is a water quality constituent. Well, it's a mineral, or an elemental mineral. And some of these communities, so they're looking at oxidation filtration systems, and cut me off, Dave, if I'm going way too long. But what I'm getting at is many communities, we've lived in a water-rich part of the world, U.S. for a long, long time, but water quality, I don't know if it's water quality levels are getting more protective, and our water is getting a little more polluted, our groundwater. So we are seeing this on more small community locations where we have to put in some kind of treatment. The final one was, as a third option, would be to potentially redevelop the old well with a test well to prove that first, though. Drill that deeper in the same location. It'd be unsure as to the exact costs on that, how much of the old well house would potentially have to be maybe torn down to do that and then rebuild that or all of it. But that would be similar to, say, a new well, but that would be drilling the existing well 100 feet or more deep.
I'm on board with what Rob is saying about I mean, we gotta filter it, and it's not gonna get any
Yeah.
better. And I think that it'd be great, though, if
Sure.
we could start researching what is working so well in other parts of the world, if we can, if it's feasible. Because long-term, that is the best. It saves people on housing, like their house costs, because your pipes aren't getting all nasty. Actually, the alkaline water helps with
Right.
buildup. You're not gonna get it. So I think there's so many benefits from a community standpoint. But I agree with Rob. I think we need to do filtering.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, and a lot of this is just information at this point, so you're kind of have a bit of a spectrum here of what can be done, and yeah, we'll be working with Matt and Jane on meeting with the DNR and moving forward with it, because it is kind of an urgent issue. You know, anytime you have a well issue and you have to have this shut down, it's...
I have one more, well, actually, I have two more questions. One is, if we do the number 2, the treatment for doing the nitrate removal, how quickly can we get that done?
Well, I guess I should say too, what I'm gonna do with just knowing of this now, and I've talked with Matt, we would apply for a Safe Drinking Water Loan Program grant. The deadline is the end of October, so we found out about it, I don't know, a week and a half ago or something like that, so we thought, we'll get that in place for you. So there could be, that would be upwards of $500,000 in grant money. I didn't mention that in the beginning of this. But the DNR will be the real, that's going to be they'll set the timetable kind of. Even if we'll have to sit with them quickly and look at what we want to do they're not going to really want us to just go down a total narrow path. They're going to want us to at least look at some options so they don't, in the interest of, especially with Public Service Commission, that will be a big timeline with this too. Anytime new facilities are being put in, Public Service Commission has to approve that. So it doesn't look like the cost to the water user and how much wells or water storage we have isn't out of balance. Like you don't have 20 million gallons of water in the air and you're a community of 4,000 people. You know what I mean? That's way out of whack. That's what the Public Service Commission, in a very simplified way, is looking at, making sure everything is in scale and the impact to users cost-wise is minimized. So those two things are going to drive that timeline a lot.
Well,
that could be like 6 to 10 months.
Well, I
almost.
was thinking, because like in the public notice, we added that paragraph about using it in a time of fire if we needed it, but then I'm unclear how we would get the message out to the community that they have to switch to bottled water.
With the communities that have the manganese issues, they have the same type of thing, and what they've said is if they have to use it for fire, they can turn that on, and then they'll have to notify people like within those 24 hours that well was run. But then they would shut the well off after that fire. In a firefighting effort, you're probably going to pump 50,000 gallons of water. You're probably going to be, everything that's in there is, the vast majority of it's probably getting flushed out. So,
Yeah, I'm trying to balance what our use is going to be and how long we would need to be.
Right, and we'll be
third
looking
well.
at those things. I'll be talking more with Dennis and Mike about pumping rates and how many hours a day each of these are running. I haven't had to look at that really. There hasn't been a well issue really in town.
So there's nothing being said that if we took the option number 3, which would be perhaps the most conservative financially and in the interest of expedience, if we opted for number 3, there's nothing saying the DNR wouldn't come in and say, no, we want you to do some filtering too.
Yeah, and I didn't get the number system. Is number 3?
3 is reconstruct the existing well deeper.
I see. it could come into play with, assuming the DNR says what they feel would be the best fit. I think there could be the things we've just talked about, with filtration, meaning that any constituent that comes up, or if nitrate levels were shown to potentially increase, because what I want to look as what is the historical nitrate levels of the other two wells too, not just this well. If they're all creeping up, there's this trend towards this could be a problem. Is looking for a new well or drilling the existing well deeper, is it just a short-term issue right now that could become a problem in the future? And as you draw down on a well, especially even a deeper well, your zone of influence gets much, much larger. So if there's shallow contaminated groundwater, it's going to then pull like a cone a lot farther away, like a couple miles outside of the city limits potentially. So yeah, that would all get looked at from both the DNR standpoint and Public Service Commission.
Do we know, you mentioned about historical, sort of time, how all of 3 wells, I mean, if one, how soon? Now that's not
It's hard to say.
Yeah, when did it suddenly go over 12? Do you have any idea that was happening?
So in the beginning of July, we got a test of 9.9 is when the DNR then switched us over to monthly tests that started in September.
Okay.
So then in September, we got the 12.1, and then we had a notification test or follow-up test.
So it happened pretty quick then, from 9 to 12.
Previous test to that was?
Was in a, I think, high 7s to 9.
Timeline though, before the July.
Back to 2015, it ranged from high 7s to 9.
So it had been 2 years since it had been 5 years. We'll hold it. No.
So I don't have the test in front of me, but so going back to 2015, we ranged from around high 7s to 9.0.
How much money is available with this safe drinking water grant?
We'll fund up to $500,000.
500,000. So hypothetically, we do filtering, so we need to come up with another $1 million. Which does this need to be accounted for in budgetary tax and capital expenses? Basically, is what I'm getting at.
Probably gonna be a geo bond, is what it'll be.
Geo bonds. Okay. I'm just wondering if we want to.
So a couple options, since we don't have a full actual cost yet, we could look at geo bonds. That would be a conversation I have with Ellers and Sean in terms of what kind of availability we'd have to take it on as a geo bond, or the other option is a revenue bond that would possibly affect our rates that we'd have to go through the Public Service Commission to adjust those, which is a lengthy process. So that's kind of the discussion, at least tonight, is to come up with some sort of consensus, at least to start looking in a direction, so that we can start at least trying to plan what we want to do.
Assuming we have to match with the grant.
So the safe drinking water loan, it's a loan, but it's a portion, as Greg was saying, a portion of it is forgiven, but it's based on a lot of factors in terms of like median income for the community and size and things of that. So
they call it principal forgiveness. It's a kind of a different word for a grant, but it's kind of a administrative.
Do we need a public works meeting?
Agile term.
So tonight you'd like us to say, let's go to options 2 and 3, do some studies, because the DNR is gonna want more than one.
Most likely, they're going to want us to kind of have a.
So look at the 2 and do a little more detail of what.
Correct. Yeah, I think if anything.
So I think go 2 and 3.
2 and 3,
2 and
because
3.
we're doing a new
We're
one,
let them
solving
go
it.
and then pursue it to get what we need to the DNR and the loans. They can start looking at that and bring it back to us. We don't need to finance it tonight.
Yeah. Well, and also, I think we should be looking, as Bailey mentioned, to these newer technologies, because if we're already at 7 on the other well, and it only took us like 3 years or 5 years to get to 12, then I think
it's neat.
We have
it's neat
to look
technology.
at that.
Sure.
That's right. I think
It's pretty cool.
And
honestly.
And that's why we work with these water treatment specialty companies. We pull them in as needed. They might be doing the bulk of the work. We would be just a kind of a side partner with them, probably working on the local permitting level, maybe the design of the building, demo, the construction documents, but the bulk of the science is gonna be with those people.
And that company may be looking at electrolysis.
Well, I
They-
sent,
yeah,
I think I
yeah.
sent Matt and Dave, I think
They-
I sent
they-
both of you one European company that I had found, but my mom basically
Yeah.
said anytime she went to Japan, they all had.
Typically with a pilot study, we would probably look at maybe three
Yeah.
technology options. RO is pretty common, but there are a couple of other options,
I just
and
think
that
we gotta
has been
start pushing
mentioned.
for it.
All right. So the thing we're looking for again tonight is direction. And if we say 2 and 3, that's what you need for tonight?
Yep.
Council
That's gonna be
consensus?
so long.
Have them pursue the 2 and 3
2 and 3.
and move
Okay.
forward and then come back to us with,
I actually made one at my house.
So we'd move, we'd come back with cost proposals for doing, like the pilot
It's all,
study, and
hydrogen,
Right.
lighted.
for the, one of the
Yep.
two. Yep.
we'd have a conversation with the DNR just to make sure that they're good with those routes that we're
All
pursuing.
right. All right, thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Finance Committee, we have anything set up yet? Do we need to set one up yet?
So we need to set up to have our next discussion, looking at October 25th at 5 PM. That would be an hour before the next city council meeting,
All right, but, so you want it at 5 o'clock?
if that works for,
What day?
next
First
council
meeting.
meeting on
25th. 25th.
Okay.
Friday?
Can you set me
It's a
up?
Monday.
No, Monday.
Can you set me up to come in electronically? I don't know if I'll be able to walk yet.
Oh, your surgery.
Yeah.
We'll do like we
Should
did
get
with
an Uber?
do with Bailey and put you on Teams or whatever it was that we were on, right?
That works.
Sure.
Okay. Somebody might have to walk me through that.
Teams is way nicer than
wheelchair.
Zoom.
Maybe we'll send Beth down, test it out.
I like Teams way more than Zoom.
I do too, I think.
So we already had that set on the 25th?
That's a council meeting, but we're gonna
Correct.
start this one at 5.
At 5.
Just to iron out a few of the details before the council meeting,
Okay.
okay? 25th, 5 o'clock, okay. So that's finance. October 25th, 5 PM, council meeting be immediately after that at 6 PM, just FYI. Parks and Public Properties,
18th, not the 20th. Sorry.
we got a meeting on the 18th at 5:30?
At 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, okay.
Yeah, which I'll have to get a message out to Israel in that group because I told them the 20th.
Okay, 18th.
Is I'll ask later. Dan Johnson, he's coming to that one.
Licensing, is there anything we need for licensing?
Not this time.
Planning Commission will be till the first Monday of next month. Health and Safety? Nothing?
It's not a council meeting, but we have a Lake Street resident meeting that will be going on. But again, we don't have that
Thursday.
advertised, so it's,
On the
Thursday.
13th.
yeah, just really more so notifying if you're a Lake Street resident.
When is health and safety?
It's at 5 PM this Thursday. But
Thursday
again,
at 5 PM. Nothing for health and
This
I
safety.
don't need to get
No.
that.
It's a
Lake Street.
A Lake Street issue.
All right, personnel. Do you have anything in personnel that you need to set up a meeting? Read, Matt, nothing?
No, we're
Yep.
still, we
Working
were
with the police,
still
yep, all right.
2 months out.
Okay, next up on the agenda is communications and new business. I think this is, anybody has a public comment can
I
step
do.
forward. Go ahead.
I'd like to say that our
Oh, yep.
public, our
Wastewater treatment.
wastewater treatment plant operator received an award for the outstanding operator for 2021 for the La Crosse district. That'd be Dennis Eaton.
Yeah, Dennis.
Dave and I and Mike and Doug and Matt and
Good for you.
had the whole
And John, yeah.
crew, and John, had the whole crew down there, so it was really nice. Had a banquet,
Very
so it
cool.
was pretty cool. They kept me out really late.
Well, it's because it's a 2-hour drive, Rob. Any
But
other
it
public
was really
comment,
nice.
anybody?
It's
I have
good
public
to have
comment.
some recognition.
Yeah.
That's
You did a great
awesome.
job.
Last week, we lost someone very special who served the Prescott Police Department for many, many years. Sherry Johnson passed away last week. And Sherry was also on the police commission.
Also, police commissioner.
And I believe there will be a memorial tomorrow at St. Joseph's.
And the
4-7.
wake,
A wake.
and then the service on
And the
Wednesday.
service is then on what day then?
Wednesday
11
at
o'clock.
11 o'clock.
So,
Yeah.
just wanted to
Acknowledge, yep.
acknowledge Sherry, and she will be sadly missed.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments, whether in the audience can step forward, state your name. Public comments?
Thomas Langenfeld, and hasn't changed any for earlier today, may have jumped the gun a little bit, but if you just look at the zoning map that was presented to us, sent to me, and the parcel that I was referring to earlier, you'll note that there's 4 parcels in that. Understand that this was drawn up in 2017 from the county. Earlier this year, I received notice that from the city that there's only 2 parcels there, and that they were going to change the address in one of my buildings and take away an address that had it there. I'll try to be brief. Where in the sense that instead of having 4 fourplexes on my units, I would now have an 8-plex building.
Okay.
6. I had a 4-plex facing on the west side,
We know.
4-plex on
This
the
one.
east side,
Which one?
1 building, 0 lot line down the middle. This is the way these things were built, 1985, 1987. Anybody that would have done any research on it would have known it. Obviously, the county even has it on the maps. When I was informed of this by the post office, I was told that the address would be taken away. I had no idea this was going on. I contacted the city. I was told by Ms. Brand that they were taking 1140 Pearl Street address away and giving it to another place, and that from henceforward, the new address would be 615 Oran Road, 1234567 That's the way it's going to be. I told her she can't do that. She said, I'm going to do it, and she did it. I proceeded to try to get documentation from the county showing how it was built, to no avail. I was subjected to, I believe, unfair treatment. I want you to read that sign over there on your board over there about the mission of the city of Prescott. And one of the, I've got my phone here, I can't see that far anymore, I'm getting old. We build our relationships on high ethical standards and uncompromising honesty and fairness. We believe this is the foundation of a successful organization. We strive for fair and equitable treatment in all of our decisions, balancing compassion and reason. When I came up and tried to point this out, I was told that it's going to be changed. Now, the economics of it, I won't bore you with, but had I let it go away, it had the potential to screw my children and my grandchildren out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I tried to explain this to no avail. This could have been settled by one phone call. And when I asked why I didn't get a phone call, I was told the city of Prescott considered the source, quote unquote, considered the source, and did it. That evening, I called Mayor Hovel. I asked for 15 minutes of his time to explain the situation. He was gracious enough to give me his 15 minutes, and he contacted me 2 days later and said, you are correct, and we changed it back to the way that it was before. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. However, it went too far. It went too far because the police department got involved, and there's phony police reports.
I'm gonna stop you here.
I will stop there. I will stop there.
Because we're not gonna.
I got it.
We've solved this issue.
We're not gonna resolve the issue here, but it will be resolved,
If you
of
have
course.
issues, again, let's do it the other way. We're not gonna publicize it.
I've asked, thank you, I've asked to be put on the agenda to review a previous decision based upon the assessments put on my property on Henry Street, based upon the fact that Ms. Brand said that she did all this research into looking into the property and to the history of the property. And had she done that, she would have seen right from the get-go that there's 4 fourplexes there. It's right there. I don't believe she did. I don't believe that she did. And I asked for a rehearing on that. She also I asked that 3 of the councilmen be recused at that. And the answer was that the cities, city communities across, whatever it is, in the state, told them that they didn't have to be recused. Now, I'm quite certain that had they known of these issues that were going on, that they would have got a different answer on that, but that was needed to be done.
Glad to hear.
Thank you, Dave.
We discussed this,
Yes, we have.
and we're not gonna keep beating it here.
I know, I understand, I just wanted to go,
I'll defend Jane on one thing, I know where you're coming from. She researched it, but that was just for the special assessments on that property, is the way I interpreted it. You interpreted she had inspected everything on the property. She was just looking for whether that special assessment was to be waived or not. I don't think she went out to say, was there 4 parcels, 6 parcels, 8 parcels. She just checked the minutes for that particular special assessment. Is the way I understood it the night she presented it.
okay,
So I'm gonna state that.
I will, you can state that, and I get it. I asked this with a heavy heart, but I asked that your personnel committee consider the resignation.
And we talked about that. Only to our attorney, I want you to talk about that.
Okay, then if we were talking, I guess this was open, I thought maybe I could bring
Well,
this
but
up
you're
with the
going into more
council.
personnel issues, and it's not open to my personnel issues.
It's not open, okay.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate
understand,
that.
But I'm not gonna follow it.
The final thing is that I didn't pick this fight. The city picked it with me. And I tried damned hard to get it avoided, to no avail.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Any at all? Not, is there any other business that the council would like to bring up we can't vote on? And the only other thing I have left is the approval of Dave Olson for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Motion to approve Dave Olson for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I'll second it.
Motion made, second, approve Dave Olson for Board of Appeals. Any other discussion on the motion? Not all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. One more item.
Motion to adjourn.
One more item first. If you can, because Sherry passed away, but she was a police commission member, I would, if anybody knows someone or ask around if they'd want to be on our police commission. Sherry was the only female on there, and I wouldn't mind keeping a lady on there. Not that if I get a qualified man, I would take him, but I do like the diversity.
How often do they meet?
As needed. They basically hire, fire, and discipline, and they might meet once a year, just if the chief has something for them.
Like once
I'd
a
be
year?
willing.
Once or twice. Can we have council on there?
No, SB, no.
A resident other than a
Right.
council member.
Yep.
I'd appreciate that, but if you're off the council, but just, so if you think of somebody, just let me know, or have them at least talk to Jane, we'll have them fill a little application, apply, and then we'll present them at the next meeting, but it just helps. I mean, it helps me, it's my responsibility, but I also like, you know more people too than I do, and I know a lot of people. You still know more, outside of my circle, so, all right? Now Bailey.
Rather than just.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you everyone for your
Here
participation.
for my attorney.